Well, good evening, everybody. This is your host, Mason Sims, and thank you for tuning in to another episode. Joining us, as mentioned a few days ago, is Mr. Curtis Loftis. Since 2010, he has been the treasurer for South Carolina, and he'll be discussing some of the current projects that he's working on and also the upcoming election in the primary of 2026. So, thank you for tuning in this evening. And let's get started. Well, good evening, everybody. Here with me, I have State Treasurer Mr. Curtis Loftis. And Curtis, thank you for joining us this evening.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And most of us that do follow state politics probably know what you do, but those that maybe just follow like the national elections, feel free to tell us about yourself.
Well, good. The state treasurer's office is a funny kind of an office because everybody knows it's important because they know their money's important, but they don't really know what we do. But we're a $75 billion bank. That's with a B at the heart of state government. Everything in state government relies on what we do. We manage money for the state, for universities, for some of the tech schools, not all of them. We manage a lot of money for counties and cities because we can just do it better than they can. And, to manage money, to invest it and to invest it properly is difficult work, and it's hard to have a lot of small operations. So we aggregate all that at the treasurer's office, and we do it. Last year, I think we returned $1.45 billion in interest. That's $1.45 billion that the state didn't have to tax people. So we're pretty proud of that.
That's great. And so I know the primary is going to be in 2026, just next year. So between now and then, are there currently any projects that you're working on at the moment?
Well, as far as the election, uh,
Well, election and like anything else that you would like to get done before the next election.
I was not going to run for reelection. I was going to retire, and it kind of announced. I mean, it's not a big deal when somebody says you retire. Who cares, right? You're a politician. Move on. Somebody will take your spot. But because of the recent unpleasantness, I decided I was going to run again. So I've got to rebuild my campaign. We've started that. It's fun because I didn't think I was going to ever do it again. And so when I go down the road now, instead of listening to the radio, I'm making my phone calls and calling around people. And it's really there's a great side to politics in that you meet so many people and so many people are kind to you. And I've had 4 very successful elections, and I'm looking forward for a 5th one. I don't know what's going to happen because you never want to take for granted that somebody's going to vote for you. You got to go out and earn every one of them. But I like campaigning. I like going out and shaking hands and jumping into a crowd of people and go talking to them because that's how you find out about people.
And I didn't realize this until I started running myself, but a lot of diners, it seems like that's a great place to find people that vote. I'm not sure why that is, but it seems like a lot of people that participate in elections are right there at the diners.
There's a lot of conversations at that diner, and they decide a lot of elections too. So
Right.
I've got that going, and we're running statewide. It's a pretty good sized operation. We had to catch a gin up, and we're doing that now. I've hired campaign consultants. It's expensive, and but it's just what it is. As far as the office, I'm very happy at the state treasurer's office. I'm the senior elected state treasurer in the country now, and so I've seen a lot, done a lot, and the treasurer's office is at South Carolina treasurer's office is considered to be one of the best in the country, maybe the best. We have people come to see us to see how we do things. And I haven't done so much in the last couple of years on the national level because I thought I was getting out and it's time for younger people. But if I'm going to stay, I've got to go back to that because I've been the leader in a lot of things. Everybody's anti woke now, right? Everybody's anti DEI. I started that in 2015 on the national and the international level. Nobody had ever heard of, especially on the Republican side. So I was, I've spoken to groups, trade associations, groups like that. Not so much in the newspaper because you're talking to folks, they don't know much about it. So we were ahead of the curve. It was all about how we change these organizations. Uh, London, New York, The Hague and the Netherlands, Boston, Washington, LA, Portland, Seattle, and just about everywhere in between, uh, gone to speak to these groups. And we've had a lot of effect. We've had letters that we were sending as from different groups to the president, to Congress, and all. We were able to go speak to Congress start moving this whole the Overton window, as you will. And now, of course, everybody realizes what a sham this whole DEI movement was. But we started again, it was almost 10 years ago now. I When I started with BlackRock, people knew they were successful business, money management, but they didn't know that they were the wokest. They didn't know that they were the engine behind woke. And I denied them a $41 billion contract because they were woke. And they're still not happy with me. Let's just say they're unhappy. Every once in a while, Larry Fink, who's the chairman, who's the president, um, well, it wasn't too awfully long ago that, let me get this right. It was on uh, the Money Channel, Bloomberg, or one of those Money Channel. I forgot which one. They asked him, he was being interviewed. They said, "What do you think about Treasurer Loftis when he says that y'all just too woke and you're bad for business?" He said, "Yeah." Because I run into him places and I actually like his number. One of his head guys is kind of a friend of mine. But every time I see him, he'll say, "You're not going to hit me, are you?" It's good and friendly, but all of that was just bad for business. It was a mania that took over all this DEI stuff. It didn't help the people it was supposed to help,
Right.
but it hurt everybody. And so, as hopefully we keep fighting it, we got to keep trying to get rid of it. The bills that are passed really aren't that good because they're easy to get around it. But there's sometimes it's just hard to do. But we just have to keep it up. We got to keep saying we just won't have that. So that's the kind of thing I've been working on in the past. I'm going to get back to because it's very important. And now that we have an ally in the White House, I think that it's a lot easier.
Yeah, and they're good Democrats, but the
Yeah.
woke, it's just, I mean, I feel like if the Democrat Party right now, at least nationally, they've gotten too far woke, and if they want to win another major election again, they just need to realize that's not the answer.
The problem we have is like Carolina and Clemson. I banked both of them. I know everybody there. I like them. They're woke. People think they aren't because they wear orange and have football games. They are super woke. If I go to give a speech to say 200 uh, people in politics, Republican types, if I talk about education, which I don't usually talk about education much because that's not my thing, but if I do, I'll have two, three, four couples come up, and some of them will be in tears. They said, "We sent our beautiful girl to Clemson, and she came back. She's pro-abortion. She's pro-everything. She's anti-religion." Or I hear the corollary to that is, "We sent our handsome young son down to Carolina. He came back with Che Guevara t-shirts on. He's a socialist now." I mean, it is bad. Uh, I'm close enough where I can walk around over there. And fortunately, I'm close up to Carolina, it's right there by the State House. Fortunately, most of the young men aren't paying attention. The Southern men don't. That's a good thing. And that's what's saving us right now. But I'll talk to them sometimes. We have interns in the office. I'll say, "Well, how's it dating now?" And they say, "Well, they're all woke." That's what they say. And I want to tell us what to do because they're woke. I said, "Oh, Lord, we didn't have that." So I'm looking forward to those kinds of things because they were very important issues that I used to deal with on a regular basis, and it'll be fun.
Actually, I do have a relative that works in one of those state universities that you mentioned, and he's kind of at the point towards retirement, but I can tell it's wearing on him. He's one of the very few conservative professors there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I found out about the Clemson, South Carolina. They're woke in addition to a lot of other universities as well.
And it's embedded in everything. It's embedded in the textbooks. It's embedded in the signs on the walls and stuff. And a lot of people, they'll see it and they'll say, "Well, that's not quite right." But they say, "Okay, blah, 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 go." But, a fact is a fact. They're rewriting history to change history to make it more inclusive. Well, history wasn't inclusive. History is a dirty, awful, awful sight if you study it too much. People aren't very nice to each other, and whoever's got power tends to use it. I'm not excusing it. I just think if we don't know where we are, if we don't know where we came from, then how do we get lost? And there's a significant amount. I mean, we're going on too long about this, but there's a significant amount of people in this country, and I kind of believe it's to some degree. As a culture, we're lost, and it's because we lost our grounding. And I don't think everybody has to be like me, a Southern conservative and a Christian. That's not what I'm saying. But we have to believe that in a meritocracy, we have to believe that that a nation should exist. You know, we have to believe in certain things like that. Otherwise, there's no hope for the West, and we've got to fight. So that's something that I didn't think I was going to have another 4 years to do, but I'm certainly going to do that.
Right. And I just seeing, college kids and people from all ages burning the American flag, I just, no matter how bad they are, I just don't see how you can sleep at night after doing something like that.
It's a lot of energy, a lot of negative energy. And I used to my saying about all that stuff is when I see all that negative energy, say I'd rather go take a nap. You know, I'd rather go to the beach. Well, what's the point? You know,
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, hopefully, little by little, we'll get back in the direction that we were once were. And
I think so.
absolutely. And another thing I was going to mention too is the South Carolina Future Scholars Program still running strong. That's actually how I recognize you. I remember seeing the commercials for that, and you were on that. And that was actually a
Yeah,
real
it,
personally because it helped put me through college, and the money that was in there, really grew, and that was a really good thing that my parents had for me.
it is a fantastic program. So the General Assembly sets that program up, and it was set up before I came in. So it's about 20 years old now. And it's a good program. The General Assembly did a good job. They adopted a lot from the feds, and then they kind of made some changes and alterations. And then they say to the treasurer, "This is the rule. These are the laws. Go run it." And every state has one, and we're considered one of the better ones. When I started, it had $1.1 billion in assets, and now it has $7.1 billion. So we've really grown it. And how we've done it is we do have money for marketing, of course. There's no tax dollars involved in any of this. All of it is private dollars. It's a trust fund that sits outside. I'm responsible for the management of it and the investment, but I hire a big bank that does all that. So I'm the administrator and they're the manager, and we ride herd on them. You know, we meet with them quarterly. So they decide on all the advertising. They write the checks for everything. When they want to change investments, they have to come to Columbia. They come once a quarter, and we have it's very complicated. The book every quarter is like that thick, and it's tremendous amounts of work, but we're proud of it. I have a great staff, and you know, from 1.1 billion to 7.1 billion dollars is a heck of an increase, and so we're proud of it. Now, of course, my friends, some of the friends of the Senate, they just want to cause some trouble, so they're starting to investigate that next. But what can I do about it? You know.
Yeah, all I remember is for the most part, I had a lot of grants and scholarships. I went to Southern Wesleyan over near Clemson, but whenever my dad showed me the quarterly statement, it's like, man, that was a really good investment because for the 4 years I was in, I think he still has it in it too. I mean, it continues to grow and it does really well.
It, well, it's so flexible. Say you go to college, say your parents put back a certain amount of money, and you got some scholarships, and maybe you worked a little bit and paid some, and you ended up with some money left over to your future scholar. Well, it didn't go to waste. You can roll it over to a Roth IRA. I mean, it's the greatest thing ever. And it's a lots of other kinds of benefits like that. So it's so flexible. If government were like this, if all government were like this, we'd all love government, right? But we're lucky the General Assembly gave us a good plan. And regardless of how a handful of these senators get after me, we operate within the rules they gave us. So, there we are. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people when they hear government, they think of the negative things. But I actually had a good government teacher in high school. He mentioned some things like he said, "How do you know that when you pump your gas, you're really getting for what you pay for?" He says, "Like a lot of states, they have people that work for the government to do that." Then he also mentioned a few other positive things. Says, "Y'all," and he said, "You didn't think about that, did you?" So that
Yeah,
really,
I like a small but efficient government that takes care of the taxpayers and really worries about that working and middle class. That's the biggest group of people. That's who I worry about. The richest people don't have to worry about them, and the poorest people, they're well taken care of. There's nothing I could do about that, right? Because there's so many programs and all that. The last thing they want is somebody messing with it. So once you get that first job up into 150,000 bucks, that's really the crowd I worry about because they're the ones who need it. I don't know how people do it. I see people working long hours and everything's expensive and it's just tough. So we have to really concentrate on those people because that's the people who make America work.
and that, and I will say it's one thing Trump has done. He really got a lot of people from the middle class over, and that's how he was able to flip some of those states like Pennsylvania and other ones that
Yes.
really went blue. I mean the union workers and the working class, he was able to get a majority of those over. And that's
That's
that
right. Those are the people, the working class and the middle class, they're the people who are left out of the conversations in government. It's always special interest. Special interest is always there. Now they call themselves, the working class organization or the poor people's organization, the widows and orphans organization. They have all those great names, but no, they're special interests and they know how to separate the taxpayer from their money.
yes. And that yeah, that seems to be a common thing ever since, as long as I've been around is the people that end up getting hurt the most are the middle class.
Yep,
Seems like
that's exactly right.
fine if you're in the lower class, you're fine. If you're in the middle class, that's where you face the most obstacles and difficulties. Yeah. So another thing I was going to mention is the governor's primary is going to come up, next year. So who do you think has the best chance as far as the people that have announced their candidacies?
I don't know, but there's an old saying you probably never heard it. It's an old one. They'd say it's going to be a Donnybrook. I'm not quite sure what a Donnybrook was. I think it's an old Irish term, but it's going to be something to watch. Uh, the folks who are in it already are have shown the propensity to let's just say be very straightforward. I don't think there's going to be any doubt about anything. I think there's going to be some tears shed in this one, and I'm glad to be watching it. Glad not to be in it.
So currently with your job, do you work a lot alongside of the governor? Do you interact with him a lot during the week?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, I mean, we don't see each other day or daily and all, but our staffs always work together, and all the constitutional officers in the Senate, and the House, we all work back and forth. But we are all the constitutional officers are all independent, so we have our things we do, and you know, we when we need each other, we call each other.
That's good. Yeah, that's the main reason I asked about the election for governors. So I guess you're technically like on the cabinet for governor, so I didn't
Yeah.
know somebody that you
Well,
would.
yeah, in South Carolina, it's different because we're all independent constitutional officers. We're not part of the cabinet. His cabinet is yeah, it's kind of odd. Most people don't get this. His cabinet is like the agencies that he runs, and he doesn't run all the agencies. He runs a fair amount of them, and so that's his cabinet. And we are like I said, we're independently elected. We don't work for him. He doesn't work for us, but we all want to get along and we all happen to be Republicans. And so we have a common, uh, thought about things. So but it works out pretty well.
That's good. Yeah, that's something I knew I learned today. So does each state, I guess, have their own and how they do things?
Yeah. And there's some brawling goes on. Generally it's behind scenes, but not always because, you get somebody who wants to do one thing, somebody who wants to do something else. But it all works out, and the most important thing, as long as you can remember who you work for, a lot of people get confused, but I don't get confused. I know who I work for. I don't work for AT&T or Boeing or BMW or Volvo. I work for y'all. I work for the people of Pickens County, and that's who I work for.
Yeah, yeah. And people ask me too what my thoughts are with career politicians, and my answer is, as long as they do their job and do what they said they're going to do from the beginning, by all means, keep them there. And if they
That's
feel
right.
like start to lose touch, then it's time to maybe be replaced. But as long as they keep doing what they say they're going to do, then why replace them?
Yeah, I think you can definitely stay too long, especially in the job, depending on your type of job. Like I would, I think I mentioned I was going to retire this time. In fact, I was going to retire after the last one because I had been retired 10 years when I became treasurer. So it didn't really mean to go back to work. But I got mad at the other guy because he just wouldn't run. He wouldn't do anything. He thought the treasurer's office was a great place to go to take a nap between his golf games. And I just didn't like that. So I got after him one day, had breakfast with him, and he pointed his finger at me and said, nobody's ever beat a sitting statewide elected official in the Republican primary, and you're not the guy to do it. Well, I mean, you're a guy, that's a challenge. So I said, all right. I had no intentions of running for office. But I said, all right, game on. And I did it for a couple of reasons. One, I thought I could do a better job. But two, I wanted people to see you could beat the guy. You can, all of us, I wanted everybody to see we can beat these people because we think they're invincible, but they're not. So I ran against him, and every single person that you ever heard of in state government endorsed the other guy. Nobody endorsed me. And that's where I also learned a valuable lesson. Endorsements don't matter. I mean, you can get Trump's endorsement, maybe it matters, but uh, I beat him in all 46 counties and I beat him in his home precinct. And so I was happy about that because I thought, well, good. I got a good entrance and then I'll stay one term and I'll get out. And other people will see it. I just knew there would be people coming for all of us. Nobody did. Nobody. And so that was really disappointing to me. Yeah. So I was going to get out after the last one election ago. And I love my job. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But we didn't make any money for the longest time. They didn't pay us hardly anything. So you had to be either wealthy or you had to be somebody who could just trade on your office, and that's a bad thing. So they gave us a raise, but what happened was they didn't give us the raise until after the filing date. So the people who wanted to run, and I'd found three people to run for my job, right? And they're all three good Republicans. They were smart and they were younger, because it's good to have younger people. But younger people can't leave a CPA's job or a banker's job and go make $92,000 a year and maybe spend 2 years to get the job, and be away from their families and then move to Columbia. So, you couldn't do it. But they gave us a raise. I thought this would be great, but then they gave it to us too late. So I said, well, I'll stay one more term because I like my job. Right. So this one came up and I was gonna go home after this one, and then the Senate got after me, and I just can't abide what they done. I mean, what they did was just wrong on so many accounts. And it really doesn't have anything to do with me. It has to do with a whole lot of things. And I got a story to tell, and a campaign is a great way to tell that story. And I think if we, take the long view, uh, the awful experience of the last 18 months can turn into a good experience for the state because we can learn how things actually work. So, we'll talk about that later on. But so anyway, I'm excited about running again. I love my job. Being treasurer is a great job. We see and do a lot of things. We have these programs. We didn't talk about unclaimed property, which is my favorite program. Have you ever looked up your name to see if you have unclaimed property?
I didn't actually. That would be it
Uh,
too.
We have a lot of money, and I'm talking a boatload of money. What happens is, say you're 4 years old and your granny comes down from New York City and says, this is the sweetest little boy I've ever seen. I'm going to give him a little stock and put him in my will. And she dies 30 years later, and all of a sudden, that stock's worth a lot of money. And you've moved to California and they can't find you. So it comes to us, it comes to the state. And each state has an unclaimed property. And it's our job to list it all on the internet and try to find the people. Well, we have a family in Myrtle Beach we owe $1.5 million to. We got a professor at the Citadel we owe $455,000 to. I mean, I've returned many $1 million checks to families or people that didn't know they had it coming to them. I had to call it was a pleasure to call a university president. He had gotten some stock in a merger and the merger didn't go through, so he thought he never got the stock, but he actually did. It went into account in his name. I got to call him, and of course, because he's a friend, I tortured him a little bit before I told him, but it was $300,000.
Wow.
Well, yeah, and I did torture him a lot. I got Lindsey Graham's had money. Henry McMaster was in the office the other day picking up a check for some of his family. Jim Clyburn got to call Jim the other day, and well, 6 months ago now, and we had a significant amount of money for his campaign, and so it's good talking to him again, and so Barack and Michelle Obama are owed money at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So you say, well, how can that be? How can they not find him? I mean, it was the most famous guy in the world at the most famous address in the world, but it happened. So if you go to treasure.sc.gov, it's a free search. Go unclaimed property. You put your name in there, and you search up your buddies, your old girlfriends and boyfriends, but your ex-wives or your future wives. It doesn't matter. Churches, charities. You can search. It's a little bit addictive. I'm on a laptop now. If I sit down at night, grab a sandwich, or I'm on a porch doing nothing, I'll always put in a few names of people that I think about. And you can just put in like Pickens, because you're in Pickens County, and see what pops up. Now you'll get more because you didn't put in something very specific. But if you put in people's names, you get more, that kind of specificity. But you'll be surprised, and it's a lot of fun. You make that call, and you might not find money for yourself, but if you call an old college buddy of yours and tell him, "Hey, I found you $800, but I'm not going to tell you where it is unless you take me to lunch," and he'd be more than happy to take it.
Yeah, now you gave me something to look up after this. This definitely
Oh yeah,
seems
we have
that.
hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. We give back about 35 to $40 million a year.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, yeah.
I I know this is definitely the elephant in the room, and if you're comfortable answering this, this would be all right. So, kind of describe, the incident with the $1.8 billion last month. So I know a lot of people here in Pickens County, they're upset with our senator's decision to ask you to be removed, and I was just curious to see, I guess, like what all that entailed, or what kind of drew the attention.
More than happy. It's a funny thing. It's and I don't like to use this word because it's an overused word, but it's kind of like when you've been through something that's traumatic, right? Whether it's a car wreck or something. And like I said, it's not a good word, but I can't think of another way to say it. I can't really decide how I should talk about this because one, it's just complicated. I mean, if I tell you the information you need to know so that you can make the right uh so you can reach the right conclusion, it's going to take 3 hours, and you're going to be dead asleep on the floor. You're going to be throwing things at the computer because it's heavy duty accounting and auditing and law and banking and investments. I mean, it just so I'm trying to think how to really talk about it. First thing is to say there was never a mysterious bank account with $1.8 billion. That's just something Larry Graham just made up. There was never a mysterious bank account with $1.8 billion. And yet that headline went around the world. There's not one penny is missing. Not one penny has been misspent or misappropriated. It didn't get sent to one agency or another agency. Not one taxpayer has an extra dollar or less of a dollar. It was all accounting. And the accounting is done in the comptroller's office. Now, we do accounting in the treasurer's office, but we have, well, in the trade, we call it folding green money. Everything I have can be spent. And last night it was about $52 billion. That's with a B. And some of that's in the bank, about $1.5 billion is in the bank, and the rest of it is stocks. Excuse me, is bonds and other types of fixed income that we've invested all around the country and then sometimes around the world. But we can count that. We know it, and our partners, they audit that every night, and we audit it, and so we know what we have. But what happened was this accounting error that caused the old comptroller general to go away. They got a new one, and they got their guy. And the Senate worked hard to get their fellow. So they got their, let's call him a puppet. Well, they looked at me and said, well, if we can get rid of this guy, we've got control of the accounting and the money. And remember, this is a $75 billion bank, and they can get control of it. that have their guy as the accountant and their guy as the banker. So that's the setup. So over the last 18 months, we've been through, I guess, is just the kangaroo court. Uh, every time I go into a hearing, I have to raise my hand and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's important. The committee chairman, Larry Grooms, can throw me in jail. All he does, the law says he goes to the attorney general, says this man committed perjury, and the attorney general and the law says will file the appropriate charges. So that's the power they have over me. Now let's look at the reverse. They don't take an oath at all. They don't swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And because they're senators, they have legislative immunity. They can slander me, they can libel me, they can withhold the truth, they can do all sorts of things, and I can't do a thing. They can say, Mason, you're a serial killer, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't sue them. Who do you complain to? So that's what we have. We have this uneven world. They're the judge, they're the jury, and they're the prosecutor. All three of those in court are sworn in. They have different oaths, like the judicial canons is the judge, and the judicial canons say that we will present all of the evidence and it will be impartially given, so there's no bias. They only gave part of the evidence. The evidence that cleared my office, they didn't present. And they knew that evidence existed. Huh? Go
Is
ahead.
this like finance committee? Like, does it sit
Yeah,
like
the Senate subcommittee with Senator Larry Grooms is the chairman, and his sidekick was Senator Goldfinch. Goldfinch is from Horry County, and Goldfinch is running for Attorney General. We cannot allow that to happen. He is not the man we want as our Attorney General. I'll come back to that. So, but you see, they wanted the money. And so they controlled everything. Could you imagine going into court when you didn't know what you were going to talk about? You were always under oath, and nobody else in the room is under oath, and everybody has immunity. I mean, if you think about it for long, you say, well, this is just crazy. That's what it is. They were supposed to, when they went to an investigative committee, they were supposed to send me a letter because the president of the Senate, Thomas Alexander, was supposed to give them permission to be an investigative committee. And that investigative committee then had to give me certain legal rights similar to what's in court. They never sent me a letter. They never gave me any rights. They took my rights away. I was treated less than a crack addict. If I had been a shoplifter or a serial killer, I had more rights. And they're trying to overthrow a statewide election. Now, I don't know you until tonight, but I think that you would agree with me that if you're going to deprive a man of his job and if you're going to overturn an election, that at least the people doing it should be under oath. I mean, you should have to be, it's serious business. Now,
it
see, the
is?
treasurer's office, as an executive, I sign documents all the time where I sign my name, Curtis M. Loftis Jr., state treasurer, and the date. And the oath under it is there are no material misrepresentations or omissions, which means I didn't lie by saying something and I didn't lie by leaving something out. They refused to sign that. We tried to negotiate, make them do that. They wouldn't do it. So that's the setup here. So when they say there's a mysterious bank account of $1.8 billion, they just made it up. It was never a mysterious bank account. In fact, there was never any money. It was all appropriations. Remember how I talked about we have the spending green cash? Well, the
Right.
comptroller general deals in all these budget dollars, and they're not real dollars. You can't spend them. They represent real dollars that will come into the system during the year. So it's like a budget at your house. You'd load all those fake dollars, the budget dollars, on the first day of the budget, and then as tax dollars come in, you replace the budget dollars with real dollars. Well, all the money they were talking about, the 1.8, that was all appropriations. It wasn't stuff from my office had. We don't care about that. We care about the real money. So,
What
you
bank
know,
account are into? Like the mysterious bank account, was that they saying like this is something that wasn't claimed at all. It was
Yeah, well,
just
that's what he said. But see, there was never in a bank account. You can't, well, one, you can't put fake money into a bank account. And the bank accounts, I know exactly what's in them. I mean, I can tell you, I get a report. I can't do it. Well, I can do it on my phone. I can tell you exactly right now how much money is everywhere. And so that's how it works. So that's the setup. So you've got that, and you think, well, okay, that doesn't sound good, but what does it really mean? Well, they made charge after charge after charge. And when I would go to a hearing, I went to a hearing I thought was going to last 20 minutes. It lasted 6 hours and 20 minutes. I mean, can you imagine six people in front of you, judge, jury, and prosecutors, all of them are the same people, not under oath. And they knew it was going to last 6 hours and 20 minutes. They didn't tell me. They had all the questions written out. And what they would do is they'd ask you a question like, they'd ask you everything about what you're wearing, but they wouldn't ask you about your tie. They would never ask you about your tie. You're wearing that blue shirt, I mean, blue jacket and a white shirt and this. And then at the end of the day, they'd say, the man refused to wear a tie. They're just saying, I had a tie on the whole time. It's not in the record. That's the kind of stuff they would do. So I don't want to go to that far because my analogies aren't that good. But here's how it's going to end. The House said, we don't want any part of this. Thank goodness the House is very mature about it. In the first place, there's an election coming up. It's a voter's job. They don't want me, they can get rid of me.
right.
But the funny thing is, of course, my poll numbers are higher than they've ever been because people watch that. Nobody liked it. But let me go back to so all that's over now. The House didn't like it, wouldn't take it up. The governor was never with it. He was always said this is some of the voters. You don't worry about it, Senate. But they refused to listen to him. But now what's happening is independent people are bringing the facts. Like we just this week we had our one of the rating agencies give us our national rating. Just like you have a credit score, everybody's got a credit score. Well, the state has one. And the best you can do in a state is have a AAA rating. Well, we got one this week. So at the same time that Larry Grooms, the senator from Beaufort, Berkeley County, is saying the books are a shambles and there's $1.8 billion in a mysterious bank account, these professionals sitting in New York City who can be sued if they're wrong because they're the rating agencies. I mean, these are accountants and auditors and former bankers and investors. This is a high-powered group. They rip our books apart and they put them back together, and they gave us the highest rating. So they don't match. Well, we just had the state's year-end audit. Guess what? Clean as a whistle. So so you got rating agencies, AAA, great credit, great books. We understand everything. You got the state's outside accountant who gave the state itself their audit. Great. Then you got the treasurer's office audit, which is a different outside auditor. Again, great. So we're starting. So all of it's starting to unwind. But here's the problem: the same newspapers that, like the Post and Courier would print anything that the Senate gives them. If they said uh, Curtis Loftis is Oprah Winfrey's love child, that's in the paper tomorrow. I'm just telling you, they'll print anything. So when the AAA credit rating went out, we did a press release. Well, guess who doesn't print it? The Post and Courier. I mean, so they printed every bad thing they could to make the state look bad, and the state looked bad around the world. I mean, when there's a headline that says $1.8 billion in mysterious bank account, that makes the state look bad.
Yeah.
Nobody. I mean, if you're sitting in London, I have a friend of mine who works for you like the name of this, His Majesty's Exchequer. He's the treasury of London. He's a lawyer for them. And of course, your friends are going to give you the hardest time. Picks up the phone, calls me, right? Started giving me a hard time. Everyone around the world, this is the financial press everywhere. They just made that up. Yeah, I know how serious this is. I was worried about our credit rating because, at some point, whether you have the, the goods to prove that you're a good credit, at some point your reputation takes off. But they didn't care. And time after time, they put in their last report that the books of the state were a shambles.
What was
Uh,
their Were they wanting to get somebody else in there? Or what was
Well,
it?
yeah, they wanted here's what they did, and a lot of people watch these hearings. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like the World Series, but a lot of important people watch these hearings. A lot of business leaders, a lot of political leaders, a lot of church leaders, and I've heard from them. They were shocked. I don't know if you watched any of them, but they talked about me like I was a dog. I mean, I was in the room, and they talked about me like I was a d you couldn't do it in court. You know, that's how bad, but I I can handle it because I know who they are. Yeah, again, I don't work for them. I work for the people of Pickens County and Oconee and Greenville. I got 5.3 million bosses, and it ain't those guys in there because they don't work for y'all. They work for special interest, and they want the money. So I have heard from all sorts of people, people's names who you would know. They were shocked. They were appalled. I had probably one of the most important non-political people in the state call me and say, my wife and I and our adult kids all watched this one Sunday afternoon, the Sunday after the last hearing. And he said, we all felt debased. We felt like we had watched some kind of porn or something. We felt bad about ourselves. We felt bad about our state. We felt bad for you. And we felt bad about the state Senate because their behavior was so over the top. And and I guess that's why I didn't bother it so much. It was so over the top, I just didn't care. When somebody goes that far over. So what we got to do now is just got to make sure that we rebuild that trust. We polled it now. My poll numbers are better than ever. Nobody believed what they said. There's a few people out there. You get these Democrats with 4 followers, and they'll raise a little hell on Facebook or something. But everybody gets it, and the Senate is just floating with no leadership. And they've got, as a state, this is what I'm talking about something good needs to come out of this. The Senate needs leadership. They don't have leadership. Senator Vincent Shaheen, who's now retired, I don't know if you ever knew Vincent. He's a younger fellow.
He
He's
ran
now the
against
mayor of Canton.
Nikki Haley, right? He ran
No,
against Nikki.
Vincent, yeah, he did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a very nice fellow, very well respected. I guess he's in his 50s now. I don't know, but he's younger than me. And he's now the mayor of Camden. And he said on the radio, and I didn't take this as an endorsement of me or something like that, but he was just talking about the situation. He said, this is a whole lot of nothing. And in the old days, the senior senators, leadership, would have taken everybody into the back room, and this would have been solved in 20 minutes. And that's exactly right. You know, what happened over the last year and a half is a stain on South Carolina. Corporations saw it, banks saw it, everybody's seen it, politicians themselves saw it, and it's shocking. The Senate has got to do better. Well, I can't, I don't want to keep going on because I go on forever, and I don't want to do what they did, which was just talk terribly about me. So I don't want to do that about them. They do need new leadership. I think that is across the state. People realize that, and I'm hoping that we will get new leadership for this. But the problem is, it's like DEI. It's seniority. That's all that matters, seniority. And so we're stuck with the people who have been there the longest, whether they're good or not.
And
So I'm
other,
glad that we're starting. Huh?
I was just the average voter too. They don't really pay attention to these things, and this is what really affects their daily lives. Is this what you and I are talking about right now?
And you know what I found out is the few people who were interested, they said, when they found out there was no missing money, they said, "Who the hell cares about this? It's accounting." Everybody's had accounting problems. And if you work for a bank, say you work for the biggest bank in the world or one of the biggest, say Bank of America, they have accounting problems. I mean, Goldman Sachs, everybody has accounting problems. That's what you do is you fix them, right? When you have a problem, you fix them. So all of that is hopefully, well, it's kind of behind me. I'm the most investigated person ever in state government. This is my 11th investigation, and it's always been by the same people, Senate Finance, or the people they've got to do it. And they don't like it because I've squealed on them. I blow the whistle. the first time I blew the whistle was in 2011 when I disclosed to the public that $249 million a year was going to Wall Street in hidden fees. Now, think about that number. One day when you get a chance, write down 249 million and write down that's $250 million every year was hidden from the public. And when I blew the whistle on that, and it was in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and the Times of London and all that, let's just say I didn't make any friends. So they've been investigating me ever since. They never find anything. Nothing ever sticks. They just do it. And so right now, we finished with the Senate. Then Larry Grooms has got the Inspector General at my office now. So this is my 12th. I'm on my 12th investigation. Then as soon as the Inspector General finished, Larry Grooms, Senator Grooms in the Senate has the 13th one. That's the Legislative Audit Council. And then when they finish, probably at the end of 26 and beginning of 27, the Legislative Oversight Committee starts. So I will have had 15 different investigations. Nobody ever turns up anything meaningful. And it's cost the taxpayers tens of millions of dollars to keep investigating me. And this is what I mean. There's no leadership.
Yeah, and
Nobody, the House would never let that happen.
yeah, I was just saying, it seems like it's
What's that?
made it's upset about the accusations, just about the situation, because they're more upset. I feel like with the Senate than they were with anything else.
Yeah. Well, I have overturned the apple cart, as we used to say. I have all these old sayings that people your age never heard of, but I've been instrumental in a lot of things that most people don't know anything about. Like we used to approve leases and big buildings. We sell buildings and buy buildings and stuff. The state, we would approve those, but we never had conflict of interest. We never knew who was buying them. So you've got me, you got the governor, you got the comptroller general, and the Senate Finance Chairman and Ways and Means. And so we're voting on a 25 or $50 million deal that the ABC Corporation is going to buy. So I said, well, wait a minute, who is ABC? How do we know that this isn't one of our donors? How do we know it's not one of our brothers and sisters or something? And you would have thought that I had thrown a bomb. But see, now we get all that information. So, I mean, those are the kind of things that we stopped. And there's scores and scores of those things that we put an end to that nobody knows about and nobody cares because, you know, unless you're sitting at that table, you don't know it. But it used to be that hardly anybody asked the hard questions at what's called the old Budget Control Board, not the SFAA, that board I sit on. And when we started asking questions, agencies just changed how they did things because they couldn't afford the questions. So all the swarmy stuff, it went away. So all of that may be a lot of enemies, but who are those people? Those are the rich people who feed off the taxpayers. I don't care what they think. And yeah, that's why my poll numbers are always good. People get it. I mean, this is who I am. I don't make this up. This is who I am. I can't pretend to be somebody I'm not. I work for the middle class. I work for the working class. I work for people who want to have a better life. My father came from Inman, South Carolina. Couldn't wait to get out of there. He said he was the poorest house on the poorest street of the Mill Hill. And at 17, he went in the army and came back 10 years later and started a business of his own. Never got to college. And so we're working class all the way. And I still see myself as a working class guy. I'm not really, but that's how I look at the world. And so that's who we represent. South Carolina is a working class place. We're not a rich place. We don't need big fancy schools. We need better teachers. We don't need all this the things they want to spend money on. We need to go back to taking care of the working class. And the treasurer's office does what it can. There's a lot I can't do about that because I'm not in the General Assembly. But we're going to make sure that we look after them. And one of the things is you got to tell them the truth. And
That's what keeps our world spinning. Those working class. I mean, that makes all the difference, especially elections as well. It's the getting the votes from the working
that's
class.
that's the nurses. That's the nurses and the realtors, the pest control guys, the mechanics, I mean, it's everybody you know. because special interests, especially now, people say like, well, that's a big American corporation. There's no such thing as an American corporation anymore. You know, the sovereign wealth fund of Kuwait will own, a large percentage of something that you think is completely American. And there's stockholders are from around the world. And the Canadian pension plan and the European pension plan, all these people own this stocks and stuff. So we don't, all that stuff's by the wayside. And so what we have to do is look after our folks. And we have not done a good job of that. We have, Coastal Carolina, I'm a fan of Coastal Carolina. 60% of their students are from out of state. And then 60% of them are females. So you got about 15 or 20% of the population at one of our state supported schools are males from in state. How does that help us? Columbia campus at Carolina, it's the same way. It's 55% or something like that. It, believe me, it's hard to get an accurate number from universities. I mean, they're my friends and all that, but I know them. But we have as a state, our state supported schools, we educate more out of state females than we do in state males. Think about that. It's kind of crazy. And I don't have anything against out of state females, right? But why do we care? We want our people.
Be educated.
And so and it boomerangs is really something. If a kid from a small school, guy from Inman goes to Clemson or Carolina, good chance, proximity, he's gonna meet a girl from out of state. Hope he does. Hope he falls in love, right? But she's not going back to Inman. She came from New York or New Jersey or Connecticut. She's going to go to Atlanta or Charlotte, maybe. We'll make her back home. That's why we lose some of our best talent just in how we do these types of things. Again, it's because we're not interested in our people. We're interested in the elites who run the universities, the elites who teach at the universities, that's who we're interested in.
Right. The one, what is the scenario for like the female and male students right here in state? Do they usually like go right into the workforce, or do they go to universities out of state? What are the statistics show for that?
You mean our homegrowns?
Yes.
The people from South Carolina? Oh yeah, a lot of I can't tell you everywhere I go because people think I have something to do with it, but I don't. Well, my dentist, the greatest dentist on the planet, he has 3 boys. They're all going to be dentists, but they couldn't get into school even though they had all the grades and everything, just because they were South Carolina. They had to wait a year and then to get into the second year. Whereas people with uh, uh, less good scores and from less prestigious schools, but they were from out of state. And a lot of it's DEI stuff. Carolina, the University of South Carolina graduates about 100 medical students each year. 50 of them leave the state the very first day.
And
So why do we want that?
most
Yeah.
schools,
So we've got to figure out a way that what was that?
I was going to
We've
say,
got to figure out a way where we keep our.
and so the schools is their point of view, like to get the people from out of state that's going to make us the most money because they'll have to pay the out of state tuition. So is that kind of why they focus on getting people out of state?
That's right. And they need what they need. That's it. And I tell them all the time because I do their debt for them. And so, like I said, I have a good relationship with them, but I know them, right? And they spend too much money. They say, "Oh, we've got to have nicer dorms or people won't come here." Well, fine. Let the people who want marble countertops go to a different school. Our students didn't come from places. How many kids do you know at your middle school come from fancy houses that have marble countertops and all that fancy stuff that they put in dorms now? We spend 250, $350 million for dorm complexes now. I mean, think about that for a while.
1%.
That doesn't help us. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. And I've gone over to Carolina and just walked into the dorms and talked to people. I went in. It's a good thing about having all this gray hair that it's grandpa. They don't worry about you, right? So went in and knocked on the door, and there's some girls sitting in there on their bed. I said, and of course the room was awful. It was like when I was in college, it's a mess, right? And it was an old dorm, and I said, well, would you have gone to another school? Would you go on to Clemson if it was a better dorm? She says, no, we wanted to go to Carolina. We didn't care. So
Right.
we just
So
again, I'm going on. Yeah, I'm going on too long, but the point I'm trying to make, and you can cut out a lot of that, feel free, but we just got to worry about our people. We're not mad at anybody from another state, but these are our brothers and sisters of South Carolina. If we don't educate our people, nobody else will. If we don't keep them here near their families, nobody else will. So that's our job, and we need to do a better job. And we need to quit worrying about all the things that cost so much money. Kids will come to school if there's not a rock climbing wall, or if there's not a fencing club, or whatever it is. We spend so much money on all that other stuff. So
Yes, I
we could do better.
love Clemson. Yeah, just a lot of people aren't happy, with them losing, buildings like if there's a restaurant called Blue Heron in Clemson that got bulldozed to the ground and relocated somewhere else for more apartments and stuff like that, and that's upset the locals in Clemson that have been there forever. So, is there anything
Yeah.
else you'd like while
Well,
you're
we
on
covered
there?
a lot of the world's we covered a lot of the world's sins tonight. So
Yeah. So, do you have anything you'd like to add before while we're on the air?
No, I don't. I think we may be losing our connection, so feel free to cut what you want to cut. It's been good to talk to you. I'm getting out and around. I think it's this week. It might be the week after. I'm gonna be up in Pickens County. I love going out talking to people. It's just so good because you get out and what you hear when you're out campaigning from people. If you shut up and let them talk, which is always hard to do for a politician, that what you think is right. They don't want much, but they want the basics. They want a safe neighborhood. They want a safe and good school. They don't want their kids indoctrinated. They want them to learn how to read and write and go out into the world. They want a tech school that can teach them something to do, not teach them how to be a heating and air guy, then make them hang around to be the business guy too. Because a lot of them just want the heating and air part, but they want to keep you for the other part too. So they end up not graduating. They do get the information they want, but so we got to it comes up to us, and all of it is because we put the working and middle class last, and we put special interest first. And so we got to stop that. And I'm hoping that a lot of people saw that in this whole Senate thing with me, because that's where it all came from. And there are lots of other things going on. We're a great state. I've traveled the world, and nowhere else I want to live. I do go out and away, but I come back always. Yeah, because it's a great place.
Yeah, everyone comes here too. It doesn't matter where I am in the country. They hear about upstate South Carolina. It's like, oh, I have family that just moved over there. It's a great place to be. So they're all coming here. We must be doing something. Yes. Well, Curtis, I do appreciate your time.
Coming.
And that concludes our show for this evening. If you have not already, please feel free to click like, share, and subscribe on our Facebook and YouTube channel for future updates. And next week, it's to be determined. I do have a few guests on the list, so we'll see what happens. But we definitely will have another episode tomorrow. But I hope everyone has had a great week so far, and we'll have a good upcoming weekend and safe travels if you're traveling for this summer. So thank you again for tuning in. Good night, all, and God bless America. Thank you. Also wanted to mention as well, if anyone would like to become a guest on my show, I realize that election season is just approaching right around the corner. Feel free to reach out because I'd love to have you on. And those of you that probably have watched my episodes already, you know that I'm pretty fair, regardless of which political party you're affiliated with and your beliefs. I will be fair to all my guests, and that's what I strive to do. So again, if you're running, especially if you're running for the sheriff's race for Spartanburg County, there's a special election. Oh, excuse me, there's a special election that is coming up in the near future later on this summer. And again, all candidates for that position are welcome. Also, if you're planning on having these town halls and also possible debates and you need a moderator, feel free to do that as well. I have a sound system person that can come and make sure that everything like that is taken care of in live stream. All that's taken care of. And just let me know if you want me to, questions generated, or if you would like to meet with me to discuss that, I'd be more than happy to do so. So again, thank you for tuning in this evening. And once again, good night to all. God bless America. Thank you.